And the whole Black Men You Matter is just a slogan. Because when you look at politics, even just go back to anyone who's watched any presidential debate, any congressional debate, any local city council mayor debate, there is so much conversation around women and women of color and how to make things safer when we're giving birth, how to make things safer for us health-wise, right? But there's never a conversation about Black men. When it comes to the rise in diabetes, prostate cancer, when it comes to the rise in suicide and suicide ideations within our Black male community, where Black men are 3 times more likely to commit suicide than Black women. And suicide used to be a white thing. And now I'm not condoning suicide against any human race. Right. I think suicide is dark, it's sad, it's lonely. And you know, it's a human right to have a mental health and have a great quality of life. But when you look at it where it transitioned from being a white thing to now it's a Black and male thing, there are more issues than just a conversation can help. And when you talk about legislation, you know, there's a thing called Amber Alert. Mm-hmm. And an Amber Alert is when, you know, any child is missing under the age of 18. Yeah. Okay, well, you know, a good friend of mine who was an amazing senator, now running for lieutenant governor, Stephen Bradford, our California senator, he came out with the Ebony Alert. Mm. The Ebony Alert does what? It alerts when there are Black kids and Black adults that are missing. So we need legislation that doesn't say, let's put a blanket over this. Okay, we need legislation that says loud and clear that this bill, this legislation, this policy is for Black men, for a Black man. Going a little further, when we talk about incarceration, you know, we need to be in a space of deliverance and not dismissal. And a lot of times, not just from a political standpoint, but also from a professional standpoint, like healthcare and mental health, but also from just being in the community in the inner city or being in the community as just a person who is Black or a person of color, we need to be able to look at how do we deliver each other, even as friends, than just dismiss and sabotage, because that comes from a root of pain and a root of abandonment and a root of inferiority and a root of many other things, right? And so with incarceration, how do we do more mental health diversions instead of incarceration time? Because the relapse rate of someone coming out of prison and doing the exact same act is a 92%. So at 92%, if me and you go to jail for anything, we're more than likely gonna repeat that behavior. But if you're gonna get 10 years in prison and the judge, because I'm all for somebody getting the time when they do the crime. The judge says, hey, look, you know, Nick, I'll give you 2 years in prison, but you got 5 years of mental health diversion. What is mental health diversion? Mental health diversion means you're going to a counselor, a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist that's gonna go deeper into what is the root of what's going on with the behavior you continuously create. Why is your 3-part house, how you think, how you feel, how you behave, out of alignment, right? Where did you either learn this behavior or what is your payoff for this behavior? So we can figure out how to get you to unlearn, to relearn, okay? Reprogram, so your norms shift into a new norm that can be conducive, real reform, okay? And so when you're putting someone in the slammer, that's dismissal. There's no deliverance in there. Facts. There's no deliverance in there, you know? And so the real thing is to make sure that, no problem, that make sure that we are getting Black men to a place of having a diversion. And also you said accountability really quick. Like, I love accountability, but I hate the way it's thrown around. Because accountability isn't something that I can just tell you, Nick, you need to be accountable. And then tomorrow morning, you're just like, you know what, Doc, I apologize, I'm sorry, I'm accountable. Yeah, those are the superficial, surface words of accountability. But let me explain this. People, not just Black men, people need the tools on how do you really take accountability. What is accountability?
That's true, because it sounds like you say it, but it's like, how did it really happen? Like, or like, it's like a apology is empty if there's no action behind it. That makes, I mean, so.
And then what action? How do you choose as a Black man? I'm telling you as a Black man, no, you need to be accountable. This was wrong, what you did.
All right, I'm accountable.
Okay, right.
And then what?
And then what? And then what if all you know is how to say, I'm sorry? What if that's what if that's the extent to your capacity of accountability?
Guilty. I'm guilty of that. I have no problem saying I'm sorry, especially if I know that's going to get me out of trouble really quickly. Like, yeah, all right, I'm sorry.
And some men don't know a different
if
action.
it's I'm sorry and I keep repeating the same thing, then that sorry becomes worse.
And so even when I accept your apology and go back into relationship with you, and I'm not just talking about romance, I'm talking about professional, friendship, familyship, I've also just dismissed you because delivering you or assisting you would have taught you what accountability looks like for me.
So what does that look like? I mean, as we break that down, like how do you actually become accountable for more than just saying, I'm sorry, or yeah, I'm guilty, or I did that? Like, where does the real repentance occur?
I love that. Accountability isn't just, I'm sorry, it's a plan of action to shift or pivot in a different way next time around. So really, I don't need an apology from you for you to be accountable. So you can be accountable on your own without saying, I'm sorry, right? Because accountability shows up in our next engagement where we encounter the same circumstance. I see you do a different action. That's accountability.
Don't repeat the same offense.
That's accountability. And the other thing is, if I don't know a different or new action to exhibit, then I should be able to have enough sense of self and confidence in me and safe space with you, because if I choose you, I trust you. So, we got to start choosing better as well. Okay? I should be able to, accountability. I should be able to come to you and say, Nick, listen, I am, very apologetic for what I did. I don't want to do it again, but I don't know another way. Like, I don't know how to show up different for you. I don't know how to speak without emasculating you.
I think a lot of the stuff that she's saying is on point. To a certain extent to me, though, it sounds like babying people.
Yeah, I hear that. Bruv, there's a few things. I wouldn't have said in a blanket way said I agree with everything she said. She's making some interesting points.
Yeah.
Some of it, to me, out of the gate, and I know a lot of people look for kind of, I don't know if affirmative action is the appropriate way to put it, but, to me, the word that came to me while she was talking was segregation. And it seems as though, I know a lot of people say there's an epidemic in terms of certain peoples of color in certain countries, certain cultures. So there's a desire to elevate the awareness of said concerns. And it seems like that her friend, the politician guy, is doing some of that, and her work is doing some of that as well. But that's what came. Maybe I'm weird, but it seemed like you're stepping away from the idea of us as a common people and introducing certain ideas around segregation that you believe will help uplift the community that needs it the most. So,
I think to a certain extent, I kind of agree with it. Just because, like, certain things that you watch on the news, like, the news is not exactly the best place or whatever. But I think recently I came across one post on Instagram, and the guy was basically like, he was naming certain people who did like some crazy things, like like white individuals, and they had done certain things, but they were portrayed as having a mental illness.
Right. But
when one black guy must have done something, I didn't go in too deep with it. Like, you got to be careful with Instagram stuff you watch, because stuff affects you in a certain way sometimes. But the black guy, when he did something, he got choked out and he got killed. Now, I do understand that he had a rap sheet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm not aware that the guy that choked him out knew that he had a rap sheet.
Yeah, bruv, I don't ever want to present the idea that I don't believe that there are some form of biases with individuals. I believe that, the way you were brought up, the country you come from, all of those things, I think that really feeds into, the stuff you read, your identity, your worldview, all of that stuff really feeds into the way you behave in society. I'll say this lastly, I'll jump back to you. I do remember something about the way in America they report certain things. So they were like, not even here as well. So they're like, a man was attacked or something, or man was shot, so and so. Then when it was, that's when it's like a Caucasian person, but when it's a person of color now, then it's kind of like, thief, shot someone. So they really frame it in a different way. I've heard those things, and to be fair, some of these people presenting these ideas, I've seen those things, but bruv, I think this is a people issue as opposed to, let me be totally on point, is a heart issue, a spiritual issue,
Yes.
primarily, but it's a people, like naturally would say it's a people issue, bruv. Before we talk about the societal problem, societies, businesses, organizations, these are groups of people, bro.
Yeah.
And we need to address the people.
I wrote that same thing down as well. It's like she's asking for the heart of Christ.
Mm.
Like to tell someone that they're wrong, and then for that person to accept that they're wrong, go away, think about it, come back and want to change that.
Yeah.
Like it's on a day-to-day basis. People are saying to people like, maybe you shouldn't do that, and that person just like who are you kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it takes the individual to go away, like look within themselves and actually want that change for themselves.
Straight.
Do you know what I mean? It's like when you see people and actually even recognize that that thing that they're doing is damaging.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like that a lot of people walk around they don't think that the stuff that they're doing is damaging. Do you know what I mean? Like even certain arguments we might just have as a collective, like as a people.
Come on,
like
community,
human race.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like some people don't understand that certain decisions that you make has an effect on everybody else. Some people talk about how well, as long as I'm not hurting anyone.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? As long as I'm not hurting anyone, do you know what I mean? It's like I can do this and I can do that. And as long as it's just me, it's like, well, no, because there's a kid out there that's got to watch that. That's got to think that this is normal. Do you know what I mean? That they might grow up and eventually it won't be one kid, it'll be 2, then 3, then 4, then 1,000, 1 million or whatever. And then now society looks like you.
Yeah.
You think you weren't hurting anybody. Do you know what I mean?
That's a powerful point. I think, you know what is funny here? I think about, again, this type of concept that she's presenting, these kind of, affirmative action or whatever you want to call it. And I consider the other areas, like I think of the causes of these things. You're talking about how suicide is more prevalent in one community now as opposed to it was in a prior community. What has changed? Do you know what I mean? What is that community now focusing on? And again, she's raising good points in terms of addressing the individual solely, so you can get clarity around how you can reform that individual and they can be a well-meaning member of society. Yet go deeper. What cultural shifts? Like which community group has music that solely talks about kill, 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 murder, murder, murder? Money, money, money.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like, and like degradation, all that kind of stuff. I don't want us to slip back into certain conversations we've had before, but when you observe the efforts that community, spend most of their time, most of their money, most of their resources on, evidently you're going to see the product of that. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think some of those issues are where we really need to spend a lot of time. I'm grateful for people doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's really strange because it's like, on the one hand, you're arguing like we've got these issues, but then you won't tackle the very thing that might cause those issues.
Right.
That, I get it, right? That like there's higher ups that might flood the streets with all of that kind of stuff there. People who don't necessarily look like you, and so they want your community to look a certain way. I totally get it. Do you know what I'm saying? I understand that, but it's like it's the same way. Of course it's deeply embedded. So this explanation might not do it justice. But if I'm out on road, if I'm going gym now, and I'm thinking about eating well, I'll come and meet up with you guys. And you guys decide to get dessert.
Right.
Like, it's on me to say no.
Point.
It depends what the dessert is. It depends what the dessert
Well,
is.
if the dessert's not good for my gym routine,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to say no. Do you know what I mean? It's on me to say no, right? Or, worst case scenario is like, I know them guys are going over there, so I won't go there.
Come on.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, so that's my responsibility, basically, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time as well, I do understand it's like certain people, like you will live in an environment where it's tough. Like you walk out, you see it all the time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, brother, I was going to say, it's like, we've kind of talked about it a little bit, about what we're talking about systemic, when something is systemic. And this is kind of like going back to the conversation we had about, is life like a game, in regards to the whole chess thing? Because there are certain elements, it's been alluded to already in the conversation, about how there's higher ups we think about, like Zeke's talked about the music. There is a certain type of music in black neighborhoods, stereotypically, which is debauchery and just nonsense, a lot of nonsense.
Yeah.
But when Zeke was saying that, one of the things I was thinking about was how many of the record label owners or the advertisers, the people who make the decisions, who finance stuff, are from that demographic. If they are, let's say, for example, the majority of them were, then it would be easy for people to look at it and be like, well, they're doing this to their own people.
Yes.
I don't like to speak in those ways, like kind of like what Zeke spoke about, like we're mankind as a whole.
Yeah.
We're all one people group. And the further you get away from that, that's when you get into the things we're talking about.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I hear that. But at the same time as well is, okay, you've got a family, I've got a family, you've got a family, right? I know for me to be, like, for my family to be good citizens or to be good to everybody else,
Yeah.
I've got to be a certain way. There's a certain thing that I'm going to basically teach my family. So my son, for example, I might say to him, okay, cool, like, unless someone puts their hand on you, like, you don't bully others. Do you know what I mean? You don't even bully them then, but do you know what I mean? It's like, you don't hit unless, if someone's trying to attack you, defend yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
There's certain things that I'm going to teach my children. I remember I showed someone this post and they were like, that's disgusting. Like, the post said, teach your son not to kill mine, I'll teach mine not to kill yours. But that's true. Like, as disgusting as it feels, as it
What's
sounds,
disgusting about that?
bruv, to that person, it sounded like, oh, that's nasty. Like, dude, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. Because if your children know how to behave in society and your children know how to behave in society, then we come together, then that society there knows how to behave towards that society, then this society here knows how to behave with this society, then we can all, like, I remember back in the day, I read there was one, I don't know if it was a poem, I can't remember like where I read it from. So it's a story about a dad and a son. So the dad's been working all week and the son wants to play with his dad. I think it's the weekend. The son wants to play with his dad. The dad's got a little bit of work to do. So what happens, he comes downstairs and the son's excited, like, yeah, daddy, like, we're going to play today. And the dad's like, yeah, we are. I just got to do one thing and then we'll play. So sends him off to the other room. He keeps coming back to the room. And so the dad has an idea. He sees a poster with the globe, the world, the earth on it. So he's like, he's gonna chop up that poster and then give it to his son for him to put back together. Yeah. So it goes, and so he thinks he's gonna take his son ages for his son to basically put it back all together. But then within a short period of time, the son comes back and he's like, "Oh, Dad, I've done it." And the dad's like, "How'd you do that so quick?" It was like, "Oh, it's easy. If you turn it around, it's a picture of a man. Yeah. If I put the man back together, the world comes together by itself." Yeah. And it's like, and that's what people don't understand. It's like that guy who is in the music exec with the who say like the black guy who's a rapper and he's putting out filth and everyone else is hearing it. That guy's not put together. Do you know what I mean? Is that there's obviously something in that guy that they want, and they say like, we'll give you this as long as your music sounds like this. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, cool. Like, do you know what I mean? I get to feed my family. I think it's the same. I don't know if we came to that part yet with the Lecrae video, but there's a part on there which is literally just like, dude, come on, bro, that's a weak argument.
Obviously, we were speaking about it before we started recording about people and their integrity. They will do certain things for money, yes, and think like it's cool, right? But this goes back to the whole point of what's your belief system? What's your moral compass which says do this, don't do this, this is right, this is wrong, etc. Because when we think about those execs, that's just one industry. That's just music. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But we were talking about newspapers and the headlines on newspapers. That's another industry which who is giving the sign off and saying, yes, this is the headline that you can run in this story. Obviously, each story, when we were talking about it earlier, in my mind, I'm like, it just comes down to the facts of the case. Is the individual someone who has mental illness and the other person doesn't? Those are the things we have to get down to the weeds to find out. Because a lot of the time it can just be good reporting. Other times it's people are bringing their biases. But obviously everybody has, based on the lifestyle that they've lived and are living, some sort of bias or prejudice. So when we were talking about it earlier on, or when you guys were talking about it, one of the things I was thinking about was, how do you stop a police officer from being biased to a particular type of person?
Yeah.
Right.
That it's not as simple as don't do that, because you're dealing with people's experiences, their emotions, etc. And it's like that goes back to the whole system thing. Like when you know that this sort of music and this sort of lifestyle is being broadcast or marketed as this is what those people do. When you now experience that or something which looks like that in real life, you see the person wearing the clothes that is seen in those music video settings or those movie settings, you're instantly going to be triggered because that's what has been marketed to you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that goes back to the original question, like, who's funding these sorts of movies? Who's funding these sorts of music videos? And once we understand that, then it's like, okay, why are they doing it? Because we could automatically change the programming so the actions change. Because all of this stuff we're talking about really just comes down to what program are you running? What program has been running in your life for you to act it out? So when she was saying earlier on about retraining, they were both talking about it basically. Obviously, we know about the whole born again experience.
Yep.
It's like the program has changed, so we change.
Yeah.
And if we're looking at this stuff, it's like there's certain people in that environment who they're just following the programming. But a word that kept coming up, and obviously Ben was talking about a minute ago, accountability. What you were talking about was like taking responsibility. At the end of the day, we're made with the power to take responsibility.
Yeah.
And sometimes a lot of times that may mean I'm in a bad environment or I'm amongst bad people, but I'm going to be good. I'm not going to do the bad thing.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, it's like I've heard people say it from time to time, and I've thought about it, like people say things like, you have to be willing to die for what you believe.
That's right.
And that's true. Like because the reason I'm saying that as well is because there's times where you have to make hard decisions. And some people will fall back to, well, if I don't do it, I'm going to die. Or if I don't, there are some things in life that you have to be willing to die for. Because if you won't die for them, you'll compromise.
Yeah.
And that's how we get scenarios where it's like, I'll pay you a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
And you can do this.
Yeah. It's weird, man. It's we, whether here or over there, it's almost like we don't, I can't remember who was saying it to you, but I was like, if this, I think I was saying it to you this morning, but it's like, if the world was to change right now in terms of how we know it, and this is the problem, about, not, I've gone through an experience at the moment. I keep thinking to myself, what am I going to teach my son?
Right.
If he goes, because now I'm hearing that most people that go through this experience, they, the majority of them don't come back the same, right? It's but I know heartache or losing somebody and all that kind of stuff. I know that is a part of life. Do you know what I mean? It's how do I show him? I heard a question one time. I was watching an interview, and two guys who are really successful in their industry are saying to each other, you know what it took for you to get here. You know the pain, the late nights, early mornings. Do you know what I mean? It's the work you've had to put in, how you've had to dig in, right?
Yeah.
How uncomfortable you've had to be. But it's when you have a child, you love them so much that putting them in that situation makes you feel some type of way. Do you know what I mean? But that situation is what's got you to here. So it's how do you balance the two? Do you know what I mean? Because it's do you know, like with my son, like sometimes is he'll be doing something, then he's just like, I can't do it. I was like, you got to do it, and you know, you sit there, and then I act like I'm not watching him,
Yeah.
but I'm watching him, and then he's just like, and he likes to make noises, like, so say for example, he's trying to put a pair of shoes on or something like that, like he'll be going, like he'll be doing, like doing that, maybe just to get your attention, like I'm really trying here, and it's not working, kind of thing. And there's a part of me that I just want to, just like, no, look, here it's on. Do you know what I mean? But I got to take that step back, and I know.
right.
But right now, it's just with little things. It's just with him putting his shoe on, or do you know what I mean? Eventually, as time goes, it's gonna get harder and harder and harder. Like, say for example, you take him to, you know, like self-defense lessons, and the other kid's punching him in the face, bro. Do you know what I mean? And you're feeling like I don't beat up other people's kids, like. But I'm feeling like I might today, kind of thing. It's like, but you know, he's got to go through that in order for him to. But also teaching him. One of the key things is like teaching him why it's important to be uncomfortable. Why it's important for him to, you know, like accountability. Do you know what I mean? It's like when it's all said and done, all of them don't matter. It's all about you.
Yeah.
It's all about how you're able to, you know, like the thing that person told you. Were they correct? It don't matter how you felt about it.
Yeah.
Were they correct? Do you know what I mean? It's one of the things I'm going through with him at the moment is like, we don't do things just because we feel like it. We do, if they need to get done, they get done. Plain and simple. It's not, daddy, I don't feel like doing that. It's like, no, like, you got to get it done kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, how do you bring a person to that point where they can understand this is good for me, so therefore I should probably do this? Because not everybody's going to do that. So that's what I'm saying is like, I feel like what she's saying, you're trying to baby people. People need to almost come to that place.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that's the point I was going to make, actually. I was going to say, my pops always talks about moment of realization, basically. I think comes out of, from Dr. Swartz. But it's a nuts thing, brother, because I think that people need to, just like the scenario you mentioned about, you know, salvation, we are familiar with that experience, that transformative moment where we made a decision for ourselves. And I think exactly what you're saying, and you said it from the top, this ain't natural. There needs to be a moment of genuine conviction within the heart of a person that shifts to them to say, you know what, I need this. I want to be a meaningful member of society. I want to contribute in this way. So, yeah, I think it's a lot of things. You're gonna say something?
I was gonna say, just to Ben's point, it's when I look at this situation, I think to myself that because I felt like she was babying a lot, that's why I felt like I couldn't get behind what she was saying.
Yeah.
And it's like, especially when you're talking to men, like
This is, yeah.
we have to be strong.
Right.
Do you get what I'm saying? And I'm not saying like that means you can't talk about your feelings or your emotions. That is part of strength. But there comes a time when, I'll keep coming back to it, and they kept talking about accountability. Like, they started at the beginning, well, she started talking about prison and how prison isn't necessarily a remedy.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily reform. And it's a reform if you allow it to reform you.
Yeah, 100%.
If you don't allow it to reform you, it's like people say you either learn from your own experience,
right,
or you learn from someone else's lesson who's gone before you.
That's right.
And those are the two ways to learn something. But if you find yourself in a situation where someone is telling you, don't make these decisions, they're going to end up bad for you, and you don't listen, you're not using that person's wisdom. You're going through the experience, and now you're going to learn. But not everybody learns after they make a decision and get a negative result.
Yeah.
Some people need to go to prison multiple times.
Yeah.
Some people, no matter how many times they go to prison, they don't want to learn the lesson.
Yeah.
And
So,
go on, bro.
you know what was funny? Yeah, when she was talking, I was like, she's like, yeah, they need to go. The judge needs to be like, yeah, you know, you're gonna get 2 years, but after 2 years, you're gonna be on this for 5 years or 3 years or whatever. And I was thinking, yeah, what about when my man don't turn up to counselling? Like at the back of that, there needs to be this. What are you gonna? What's the incentive going to be if you don't go to your reformative programming class? Then you know you're going back to jail. Why? Because jail works.
Yeah.
Like there is something about prison that helps, that reforms. There are many people that have gone there and have changed, as much as there are many people that have gone there and chosen not to change. But again, it comes down to the fact that it is this internal programming that needs to shift, bruv. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not what you presented it really well, Bobs. And I think it's not this idea that everything comes from you. You are going to learn the lesson from someone else on the outside, or you're going to have an internal moment for yourself. And
Sorry, what do you mean? What do you mean? Not everything comes from you.
So you're not always going to be the point of inspiration. Sometimes the point of inspiration comes from. It's like, how do you get saved? Somebody preached to you. Somebody spoke to you. The same thing she's saying now is go to counseling so they can help you figure out what's wrong with you so you can reform. So as much as we need to take accountability, we need to be the person that says, you know what? In this moment, I fully acknowledge transformation is needed. However you articulate it to yourself, it's not always something that you just sit in a room and it comes to you by yourself. Sometimes outward impetus is what helps you get to that place, basically.
Yeah. And I think even to think that those things are not out there, like the things that she's saying. Right, okay, cool. Maybe specifically people are not, like speaking to people like this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Or they might not have like a government section that's focused on that.
Yeah.
But it's like, we live in the 21st century.
Come on, G.
You are one click away from getting all the information you ever need. And you know what's deep about that is like, with everything.
£20 a month.
Bro, even YouTube though. YouTube's free.
For real.
YouTube's free. And it's like, but what videos are you choosing to watch?
Exactly, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Bruv, just to go back to what you were saying before, about how do you get them to see and to realise. It's like, I think the important thing first and foremost before we touch that is just realising that we can't control other people. So when you were talking, the thing that kept coming to my mind is the best way to teach someone is to show them.
Come on.
It's by an example.
That's rich.
So what I was thinking is like, sometimes I'll be doing exercise in the morning and I love it when the children come out and see me. Because in my mind, one of the things I'm thinking is like, I want my children to see a dad who works out.
Yeah.
Who takes health seriously.
Yeah.
Because for my sons, it's like, I'm giving them many seeds to sprout into in the future, to be like, yeah, I saw my dad taking care of himself in the morning. I want them to take that on. I can say to them, like, sons, make sure you take fitness seriously, etc. And they may listen, they may not. I can do the actions and they may listen, they may not. But for me, in that example, I say to myself, well, I'm doing something which is giving them a positive example in one dimension of life. And for my daughters, it's the same. It's like, I want you to feel like it's normal for a man in your house to do these things and not to feel like, yeah, this is not important. Because when they're making their choices, these are things which are influencing them. The same way they may watch something on TV, which is programming, we're in the house together and there's some programming. Like, this is what we have to do as parents. You were talking about the whole, I'll teach my child not to kill yours, you teach your child not to kill mine. It's all the same thing. Like, that's what parents are supposed to do. They should be teaching their children the right stuff. And even the same thing, it's like, for Emma, like, it's the same. Like, I want her to know that, you know what, being married and being healthy as we grow together is important, not only for me, but I want you to see that it's important. Like, I'm taking steps for us to maintain a long-lasting relationship.
Come on.
And yeah, bro, so it's like, it's very difficult, but at the same time, accepting that, you know what, you've done what you can do physically in different areas of life, and you've given the verbal backing, like, I'm showing you, but I'm also telling you, at that point, you can't do any more than that. You can't force your children, or you can't force anybody to make a decision. They have to make the decision.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I always say, like, that's one of the reasons why I love God, because God always tells us to do stuff that he's done already. Do you get what I'm saying? He doesn't say, go and do this thing if he hasn't showcased to us in one way, shape or form, I've done this for you, or I've done this already before you. So you can see, not only I'm telling you to do this, but I'm also showing you how to do it as well.
Yeah, leads by example, doesn't he? Leads by example. That's rich. That's rich. Yeah, man. Bob's tackled it all, boy. I think there's the degree of instruction and teaching, which she's talking about. There's just leading people to water in it, but they need to get there themselves. They need to make that their own. Yeah.
And that's I think it's almost like a thing that people have been trying to take away from people, and I don't think it's a good thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like all of that. Like, you should be happy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you should be this and you should be that. It's like, no, man. Like, sometimes you need to be in a place where it doesn't all feel good. Do you know what I mean? It's like, don't take those experiences away from people. Those experiences build people. Do you know what I mean? Like, I guess maybe show them how they can use it to their advantage, but those experiences build people. And even as Izzy was talking, I was thinking, I was like, you know what? Like, how do you spark that desire in a person? Right, it is true. It's always up to the person. Eventually, it's gonna happen for them by themselves. They're gonna have to basically choose to do something about it. But I remember I heard one thing. One guy, I think I heard on Instagram. The guy was like, he said, more than what you tell your children, the environment that they are in matters the most. It matters more than what you're teaching them. The environment that they're in, and it does make sense, because it's like, you know, like when you're like, if you hang around with a group of people and they're just bare healthy, you're going to get uncomfortable. You're either going to have to get on their program, or you're going to have to move away from that environment. Do you know what I mean? That's oftentimes what I found. Do you know what I mean? If you're with someone and they're constantly just talking about, you know, like how healthy they are and so on and so on and so on. Yeah. It's going to like, bro, like, I'm sick of hearing about that, man. Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
What do you something about it?
Yeah. You know, if you want to go eat something, the man slaps it out of your hand, the man's like, no, like, don't eat that. This is good for you. Afterwards, like, I ain't linking that guy no more.
Straight.
I ain't going to see that guy, man. Straight. He gets on my nerves, like, because I can't have a burger, I can't have a sweet. Do you know what I mean? Or it's going to be like, do you know what? You're right. I'm going to switch this up, so on and so on and so on. But the problem is that guy who's slapping that burger out of your hand looks like he doesn't like you. And the guy who's giving that burger to you looks like he likes you. Yeah. And that's the biggest issue. And I guess now it becomes a problem of wisdom. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Being able to, because like I'm realizing as I'm getting older, a lot of the people who I express love to in the right way don't want to be around me. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, in the beginning, it's like, I thought it was like, I blamed myself. Do you know, maybe you can do it a different way. Maybe this, that, and the other. Like, after a little while, it was like, no, like, you've done your part. Come on. And it's a lot to take in the beginning. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, like, you've done your part, because you could end up beating yourself up. Like, but what if? They are an individual with their own mind and their own heart and their own desires and so on and so on and so on. They've got to be able to direct it in the right way. Do you know what I mean? And if they don't, then they don't. I'm pretty sure I've been there, like, not to make myself seem like I'm a guy that's got it all figured out. Like, there's been plenty of times when it's like, yeah, I don't want to be around this guy, because they're constantly doing the right thing.
I don't know how to tell you I don't like something without, excuse my language, can I curse for a minute? Without saying, fuck you. Right. You get what I'm saying? I don't know how to tell you you hurt my feelings without saying, you're a nothing ass nigga. If we gonna talk real, let's talk real. I don't know that. Facts. So at what point do you help deliver me as your friend or as your woman or as your wife that says, can you show me different? without sabotaging me, without abandoning me, without causing more pain in my trauma by leaving me because I didn't do, what was your ideology of what I should have done. Now we're talking about codependency.
That's real talk. That's heavy. You diving in deep immediately. I mean, even when it comes, like you said, in any type of relationship, like both sides taking accountability. I mean, I wish there was a better word, or I mean, you described it, you know, very eloquently, but it really is both sides holding true when they do come to whatever the interaction is to say, I'm owning my you owning your and the goal, to me, it's always like, are we looking for resolution? Or are we just really here to emote and say, this is my piece and you got to hear me? Which there's opportunities for those spaces
for both,
too. Like,
exactly.
And before, like, I need to get this out. I need to emote. I need to feel this, but hopefully in our interaction, there's going to be some sort of, you know, solution and resolution at the end of the day.
And let me ask you this. Do you believe, just personally you, that solution or resolution looks like us coming into agreement?
Not always.
Okay.
We can agree to disagree. Okay. But for me, and just like I said, I'm on your couch right now. I don't know if it's the Libra in me, if it's my abandonment issues as a child. I'm quick to be like, we agree to disagree, so I'm out. I'll run, I'll detach, I'll act like, you know, I'll shut down, I'll internalize. And I know that's not healthy, but just as a man, to stay away from conflict with any woman in my life, I'll just be like, we agree to disagree, you can have that.
But who taught you that you sabotage to avoid conflict? Because that's not true, but who taught you that? Where did you learn that from?
I mean, years of therapy, but more like, because I wouldn't say sabotage, but I just know that I tend to run or to avoid.
But fleeing is sabotaging.
Is it always?
Fleeing is sabotaging.
Or is that safety?
You might agree with that. It's fleeing sabotage.
Even going back to the original point that they were talking about, it depends on what the situation is. There's certain things that are non-negotiable that you have to agree on. There's certain things which are not non-negotiable, which you can come to an agree to disagree scenario. Certain times, retreating is what you have to do.
Yeah.
And certain times, you shouldn't retreat. You should stay in the situation and it needs to be figured out in a way, etc. But I don't agree, not blanket statement anyway, the way she's saying fleeing is sabotaging, no.
Does it feel like they are this conversation is leaning towards relationships?
Yeah, definitely.
As opposed to platonic interactions?
I think they just switched that up now.
It was leaning that way already.
From earlier in it, yeah. I kind of said...
It was nearly... I think maybe it started nearly general, but they've been going that way.
Yeah,
because they've been talking about helping people, her friend and all that kind of stuff there. It's only now like they've kind of got into the whole...
There was something, I don't know what it was. There was a point earlier where they were saying something and it seemed like they lent into relationships. There was something about the questions I think she was asking him, the way she was framing it towards him, and she asked him something, but maybe we'll touch on it again, I don't know. All right, cool. I just wanted to get that out.
Because if I engage, and especially if one or two parties become hostile in the engagement, I'd much rather be like, you know what? I'm gonna wait till we calm down.
But what is hostility? Unresolved pain.
Right.
So if you're fleeing from unresolved pain, then what is the resolve? What is the benefit of fleeing from unresolved pain? It just causes more unresolved pain.
But I was saying pain causes pain, and hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
And so in that sense, in our heightened interaction, if we hear with it, I'm gonna check out. Because you're saying things that are hurtful.
Gotcha.
Therefore, I'm gonna want to say things that are hurtful.
So let me ask you this: what tool could you use that could dissipate the hostility and bring y'all to a safe space? Because let me say this.
My feet.
No.
Walking out the door.
Wrong answer.
I'm leaving.
That is
and
your...
I will be back when
that was funny.
That is your dysfunctional norm.
Absolutely.
And that stemmed from what you said, abandonment.
Bible
All
says a
abandonment
kind word.
does is make you create a little boy
15:1,
who was taught that he didn't matter, who was taught that he was not honorable, he was not respectful, he has very low value, who grows into a grown man who projects that exact value.
Why you gotta talk about me in my face
saying,
like this,
you know, who projects that exact value on every woman he comes in contact with. And so he overcompensates for things outside of him, not things inside of him, which makes him extremely codependent. And we're getting to that with all your baby mamas. We're waiting a little long to get into that.
We can get into it now.
The tool, we'll get there. The tool for dissipating, because I want everyone to know this tool. This is just not for you or for me. I mean, because I was the one that used to go hostile. I know, I can go hostile and emasculate and say a lot of cutting things. And if a dude didn't pivot, it was going to be some pivoting if he didn't pivot.
So furniture was going to be moving.
I understand it. But the tool is emotional intelligence. The tool is what is emotional intelligence to you?
Emotional intelligence is knowing how to suss out the situation and understand and feel for someone else and have the empathy for the moment. That's why I'm removing myself.
Emotional intelligence is more about you. It's about being able to sit in what you feel. Hold on. Without the codependency of allowing this person's emotions to
impact you.
Penetrate.
To throttle. Penetrate, that's my word. To move my throttle.
Right.
That's called self-mastery, and that's emotional intelligence. And so when things get hostile, if I implement the emotional intelligence tool and I say, hold on, Nick, baby, I'm just trying to have a conversation with you. Like, seriously, there's a lot of pain between both of us, and I would rather us sit and exchange our pain and facilitate each other than us turn on each other and project more pain onto each other. Are you in a place to do that right now? Or do you need some time before we can do that? That's emotional intelligence. 9 times out of 10, that de-arms the other person. If the person's not there yet, then it's still healthy for you to say, look, Doc, I want to do that, but I can't do that right now, so I need a moment. But that's still emotional intelligence on your end.
That's two emotionally intelligent people communicating.
But what is mental health? That's mental health.
When someone says, I'm putting this EQ aside, you know, and therefore I need to emote right now. I can, you know, if I said exactly what you said to someone that I was in discussion or
inflamed with, you're inflamed at that moment.
They're gonna say, I want to hear that. Like, I feel like this right now, and the tone in which you're talking to me is you're actually being passive aggressive. You're using all these big
and you're being
therapy,
deceiving, and you're trying to make me feel inferior.
And you're gaslighting me and all of these other fascinating terms that we've come up with. When really, like, I'm just trying to find resolution. I always say it's not about who's right; it's about what's right. And even in those scenarios, if someone is enraged, if someone is feeling pain, they don't want to be. Like the thing that I always say with women, never tell a woman to calm down. Never tell a woman to relax. You gotta let it happen. And the way, I'm not gonna tell you to calm down, I'm not gonna tell you to relax, I'm gonna leave and I'll be back when we can actually have.
You're gonna leave when the pain level is at a 10. You're gonna return, the pain level is gonna be at a 20. Let me tell you why.
I'm gonna be going long enough
because you left her in her pain to fend for herself. Which is exactly what happened to you as a little boy.
Right.
And but look what it created in you. Not saying that you're not a wonderful
man. I'm not leaving forever.
This is a real counseling session, isn't it, boy? She's getting in.
Because I don't want to say it.
Right. You can say calm down to me. I'm emotionally intelligent. I can take it.
When things are a little bit more chill, because otherwise, like you said, it's going to be stuff all over the house.
And be honest,
you know the funny thing, bro? Let's pause it for a second. The funny thing, Nick said it earlier. He's like, this is two emotionally intelligent people having a conversation.
Yep.
And then he said how if he said this to certain people, it wouldn't go.
No.
And it's like, it's funny. It seems like she isn't acknowledging that because you need two people on a certain level to be able to have a conversation. Yeah. And it's like, if they don't address that in this conversation, they're going to continue to be at impasse because she's saying stuff which, as I'm listening to it, I'm thinking like one of the things I'm wondering is how are other women taking what she's saying? And then I'm also thinking at the same time, how are guys taking what she's saying? Because like she sounds like she's saying some stuff which makes sense, and he said it like it's communication. That's the word that was coming into my mind. It's like you can be in a situation. It's children kind of act like that. They don't communicate. They just throw their toys out the pram, as they say.
Got a lot of grown children in the world, bro.
Exactly. So
adult children.
It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Like, it's easy to say stuff. The harder thing is to do stuff. So being in that moment and you're in a situation, maybe you're the one that's caused the emotion, or maybe you didn't and the emotion's coming your way. Are you able to have the emotional intelligence to be like, I'm going to chill?
Yeah.
Because I don't need to blow up right now. Blowing up doesn't solve the situation.
Yeah.
That's why I said earlier, I don't always agree with not retreating from a situation. Sometimes you need to walk away from a situation.
Straight.
And that's the right thing to do.
Come on.
And she said, it's like, well, you have to have that conversation. Look, maybe you're not here in that place right now, blah, 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 etc. And like he said, sometimes that doesn't work. The person you're engaging with, it doesn't run. So, and certain times, like, we know it. Like, we've been in that situation before where we're the emotional one and we're not responsive.
Yeah.
We know what it's like to be in those situations. So if you're not growing and getting to a point where you realize, okay, cool, I'm not supposed to act like a child because I'm not a child. I'm an adult.
Yep.
It's like, it comes back to this whole thing we were talking about earlier about realization. Are you coming to a realization? Are you taking accountability and realizing, okay, cool, my friends are watching, people are watching, etc.
God is watching.
Imagine if we were just here and just we're having these conversations and we're just reckless.
Come on.
And it's just like, oh yeah, it's just us. But no, like, our children are watching, families watching, friends watching, strangers are watching. Like, what do you want to project and show people in regards to what you think is right and what's wrong, etc.? If you want people to, like, listen to what you're actually saying, then obviously make yourself someone who's like listenable in it. Let me just make up a word.
I think previous conversation, B was talking about conduct, decorum, basically. How today it seems as though there is a lack of character, decorum, conduct in society. And bro, I think we see that. We see that everywhere. And as we spoke about just earlier, a lot of people in powerful places, it appears, are pushing that for their own gain.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think, you know what, I tend to find it helps, especially that recently. I'm still working on it. I've got a lot better over time. I think I said it to you guys. I think it was even a prayer that I actually requested in church, which was like, God, help me see them as the spirit behind them rather than the people who are in front of me. The other day I was in a shop, bro. And so I've got my stuff and I'm about to pay for it. And so the counter's here, there's like a cleaning guy there, and then another guy, he's walked in after I've walked into the shop. Like, no disrespect, but it was an Asian guy. And obviously I'm in a corner shop, so it was an Asian, like, family kind of thing. Not obviously, but there's a corner, yeah. And then he's standing there, so as I stepped forward to, like, pay for the thing, like, he stepped out and he's gone, and he's just like, yo, I'm next. Like,
Wow.
Like that, yeah. Kind of aggressively, like. And I didn't mind that he was next. It's just because he was aggressive about it, that kind of made me feel some type of weight. Do you know what I mean? And like, when he did that, I just, obviously in the back of my mind, like, I'm just thinking certain things or whatever, but it's like, composed myself, just like, oh, I don't know what he's going through. Do you know what I mean? It's like, maybe that day he must have went away thinking like, who do you think he is? He might have felt some type of way, like, that made him feel good. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, if I take a step back and I'm looking at that spiritually, then it's just like, there's no need for me to feel any type of way.
Come on.
Do you know what I mean? But if I'm looking at it from just like me, just like Ben looking at that, then I might feel some type of way.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that can go from that level to like so many other levels, basically. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's a little, like, even just having a conversation with someone who don't believe in my faith the way that I believe who don't believe in what I believe. And it's so easy. Do you know what I mean? Especially that one there. When it comes to that one there, like, that can trigger. Like, do you know what I mean? Especially when it's like, oh, but yeah, you guys believe this and this, that, and the other. Like, it's just like, what are you talking about? Like, it plainly says, do you know what I mean? It's like, when the whole time I could just be calm, it's like, no. Because if I recognize that, wait, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, but he's trying to defend what, like, do you know what I mean? Spiritually, what he's grown up with and all that kind of stuff there. it's much more easier for me to let that guy talk. Do you know what I mean? It's only when I begin to, another point is only when I begin to make it about me.
Powerful.
That's when it becomes, now I've got to defend myself, because when we leave, he's got to think of me a certain way. Do you know what I mean? I've got to know that I walked away. So sometimes I watch like even Izzy's like stuff like that, apologetic stuff, and it's like, I just want him to own them. Like, do you know what I mean? I just want him to own them. And I got to catch myself like, yo, remember, we're trying to save souls.
Yeah.
We're not trying to win. We're not trying to like walk away just like, yeah, man, we got them. Because what have you done?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Kind of thing. So, like, yeah, I find that like taking into consideration the spirit behind the person like helps a lot. Do you know what I mean? Like, I guess even if you're arguing with your missus, is like emotions, I guess.
Obviously, you have to, sorry, but just quickly, I was going to say, you have to think about it, like, since you mentioned the apologetic thing, it's like, one thing you always have to remember is you demolish the argument, not the person.
Yeah,
And that has to be, you have to be able to divide. I'm going all in to wipe this argument out, but not the person.
Yeah.
Because if you wipe the person out, as we talk about from time to time, then obviously they can't be saved.
Come on. I was going to ask, how did you get to, obviously I know you, so how did you get to that space? I wanted to ask you, what I wanted to ask for the benefit of those watching actually was, considering, has it always been easy for you to take that position that you're talking, that you just described?
No.
Yeah.
It's been a battle, bro. It's been a battle. It's been a massive, massive battle. But like, just like we were saying like earlier on, do you know what I mean? It's like, first of all, it's like, why? Why take this approach and not that approach? Do you know what I mean? It's like, you said something to me time ago. You said, let's teach our kids now what we learnt late. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, sometimes I sit down and I think like certain lessons, like I'm like, Lord, like, I wish this came earlier. Do you know what I mean? And for years actually, like I'll be saying that to God. I'm like, Lord, I wish this came earlier. I wish this came earlier. And I got to a realization that it's almost like God saying to me, I've always been trying to teach you. You've been pushing the lesson away. Do you know what I mean? I've always been teaching you. Like, you could have learned this 5 years ago.
Come on.
Do you know what I mean? But because of your emotions, because of ego, because of whatever the case might have been, you've caused this lesson to be learned where you are now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So now I try my best. Don't always get it right, but I try my best. If I come across something now, it's like I try to like learn like quickly. Do you know what I mean? With my first child, like she might do something, and it's like coming from an African household, like sometimes it's challenging because she might do something and just like, you should know better. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? You should know better. But with my second, is much more easier now to you know, like Mary and Jesus. You know, like Jesus goes missing when they took the trip. Jesus goes missing, and then when they come to him, he replies back in a certain way. They answer him like parents, but it says they took notice.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like now, I'll correct my son or my daughter. Maybe not so much like how my dad would have done it. Yeah. But I take notice. That's big. Do you know what I mean? And I try my hardest, like, because emotionally sometimes, like I will get at my son sometimes as well, just like no, don't do that. Like, no, you're eating this. There's days when I might make something for him, it's like, you're eating this. But there's days when he says like, oh, daddy so-and-so, and I'll let him off. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but I take into consideration, like, rather than just like shutting it off, like I take into consideration kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? But like, yeah, to answer your question, no, it's not easy at all. Even now, I still go through it. But one thing I thank God for is I can walk away feeling the feelings, but not have taken the action.
That's big.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas before, it's like the feeling and the action, they're just like one, and it will just happen.
And so lastly on this, since we're here, so what do you feel is the advantage? I wanted to ask, like, what's the motivation and the advantage, benefits that you gain from being where you are now, operating how you operate now, and looking back to the former you and how you would behave previously or react?
You know what's funny, yeah? I think a lot of people don't take enough consideration don't take enough notice as to how it. So I might say, I don't know if, you know, I might have an encounter with this person next time, and I can maybe tell him about Christ. Yeah, that's one aspect. Yeah, there's the other aspect which I consider to even be on a bigger scale. I've told me that I can do that. So if when I go away, it's like I do that enough time, it becomes easier.
Come on.
I can say to myself, it's like, no, you're not that person. So because before, like, it's like your mind can easily convince you, like you're a person, like, yeah, like you just can't, you know, when someone says something that's wrong and this, that, and the other, whatever, you can't hold yourself and you just get into arguments and this, that, and the other. But as time has gone, it's like I've done it enough time now. It's like my mind is telling me that we can walk away. Like it feels rubbish. We can walk away, and over time, hopefully, it'll get to the point where I feel nothing.
That's right.
You feel good about it.
Yeah, and then even to feel good about it. Do you know what I mean? So over time, but like, yeah, like I've answered you.
Yeah, you got it. I tell you what's mad, Bobs, because basically when we talk about, I was talking about adult children that are around the place, like all over the place. And when I think about life and what the scripture presents to us as maturity and what the world presents to us as maturity, there's a stark difference between the two. And, you know, school is a lot of the lessons we've got today and the things that men hold to dearly, and men specifically hold to dearly, are what they learn at school. Things they learn in those early formative years that they carried throughout life, and they hold on to it just because, oh yeah, me and my, it's almost as if a man perceives that the experiences he had with his friends at a younger stage are the most authentic experiences of life, and he has to hold on to those like they were wars, battles that you fought and won.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that's why when I hear what you're describing now and the way in which you are operating at a higher level of emotional intelligence, a higher level of self-control, a higher level of spiritual maturity, it's funny because I remember the days I was young and how the things I held to dearly then, there are times you think you're going to be a bad man for life. You know what I mean? You're going to be a bad man forever.
This is me.
And it's like,
Forever.
This is what it is. It's always about money. It's about girls' business, whatever. And that's what life is going to be about. But I remember there were points when I remember a friend, he was a road guy, and we're kind of close still, and he would talk about the age that people get out of the game, basically. And we talk about, this guy's gonna be in the game forever. Nah, I'm gonna quit the game at this age, this kind of thing. And it's funny because some people legit felt as though this was them forever. Other people had this idea that they would get out. And I remember the point in time where I was kind of like, you know what? You've got to really think about the point at which you're gonna transition your life from the childish things that you're in now to something greater. Not maybe even not knowing what it was at the time, but something greater on the other side. And it's natural. Yeah. It's natural just to mature, to grow out of it, to grow. Growth is natural. It's godly.
But even saying that though, like I've always kind of looked at it as like physical growth that happens naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I know my son's a certain way now. Soon enough, like man's gonna try a trial on me. You know what I mean? It's in a jokey way.
Yeah.
But like mental growth, bro. I remember, bro, I was driving back from work one time. I'm driving back from work, and I see one guy we used to kick ball together. He was older than me. Well, he's older than me, and I see him walking. And I remember when we were younger, it was him and another guy that we kind of had a lot of respect for because they carried themselves like in a correct way. Like they were guy in uni, guy in school and stuff like that. Whereas like everyone else around where we were kind of bad. It was kind of bad, yeah? And so I see him. And so I've wound down my windows like, yo, it's that and the other, like, how you been? This, that and the other. Was like, oh, where you going? I was like, oh, I'm going to Clapton. So he's like, yeah, let me jump in. So he jumps in, bro. You know, like when you've had fast food, bro.
Right.
Like the conversation felt like spiritual fast food, bro.
Oh wow.
It felt bad, and I was just like, why did I just feel like I'm like 14, 15 again?
Yeah.
Because like man is stuck in
In the
that
same place. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, after he got out, I was like, yeah, take my number, like, buzz me. Bruv.
Yeah, I know.
I felt bad, bro. I felt bad, but I was like, yeah, there's not going to be a part 2 of this, bro.
So it's funny, right? So
I felt bad, but go on, bro.
are we supposed to be the light for those people?
Bro, do you know what it is? Do you know what it is, yeah?
I'm just asking.
Do you know what it is? I've tried, bro. Like, there with certain people, and like, look, and it's not to say man is holier than thou or nothing.
Yeah.
But it's like with certain people, like, you've tried, and after a while, bruv, the story of the scorpion and the frog, bro. After a while, when someone is telling you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
Right? Don't you just think, don't you think it about what we was talking about before about just do?
Yeah.
It's like we've spoken a bit about trying. It's like we just do. Like we don't try to be like. We are supposed to be the light.
Yep.
So when we do it, it's like the light is just gonna shine. But the light isn't like necessarily going to change someone else's darkness into light. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like all we have to do is be the light.
Yeah.
And let God do what he's gonna do with the situation.
I think with some people, the issue is like, so say someone like him, that could potentially become like close proximity.
Yes.
And that's the issue. That's the person that I don't want to bring him up. I don't want to bring him in my house. I don't want to let them know where I live. But to him, it might be, wait, I know you. I'm gonna come to your house. Like, let me come check for you and this, that, and the other. But I don't necessarily want that person around me like that. I don't mind if it's a call every so often, but you know, like if you don't show them that, it might also be an offense to them.
So this goes back to, I guess now, what she was talking about emotional intelligence. Is this a situation where you have to have the conversation with him, if that was a scenario, and be like, yeah, you know what? Like, you can't come to my house because of X, Y, Z, or let's have this sort of conversation,
100%,
etc.
It's uncomfortable, but if you're gonna, yes, I'd say absolutely. My point was, in a sense, and I think you tackled it, you brought in light. Obviously, you got light, which is default mode. Default mode is light. Yeah, what we're now talking about really is tackling an aspect of what we might call discipleship. If you're entering into a more, specific relationship tasked with the focus of elevating someone else spiritually, then you're going to step in. And if that's the case, you're going to have that conversation, and it will be uncomfortable, but it just be like, yo, bro, I don't really let people to my house, I don't, and it's really reframing the relationship from the point of today, because people catch up with you ain't seen for 30 years, and they still perceive that your relationship and you are where you were.
Take off.
Do you know what I'm saying? So you definitely have to kind of restructure those, reframe the boundaries and everything at that point in time. They may not like it, and they may choose at that point to say, oh, you know what, I'm stepping off. They say like, this guy thinks he's holier than thou, or thinks he's better than me, or better than, it may be that, but
I just go quiet, bro. I just go quiet. Like, I meet people like who like I would have known from way back, and they're a certain way or whatever. I won't even. Then maybe this is where I need to work on my emotional intelligence, because me, I just want to have the conversation. Yeah. I just won't call you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll leave it. And over time, it's like, oh, you don't really like holler at me, so I won't holler at him. It's like, cool.
Yeah, I think I've been there. Like, I remember vividly on a train, and bumped into a guy. He was a year above us in school, brethren of another brother. Them man were kind of rough, and I guess after school, us man became more so rough. So when we saw each other, we were talking our jobs, this and that. It was like a very neutral conversation, but because of, and it's mad how, someone from school, and automatically it's like, I don't want to be like, oh, we're boys, but like there's this,
camaraderie.
Yeah, camaraderie. That's the word. There it is that.
Bro.
It is that. So it's like, yeah, take my number. I'll take your number. And is this really going somewhere? Like, are we, like, we're not really boys. Do you know what I'm saying? But school, it's funny.
When you've left Obviously, you've done this. Is your norm. You've done this all your life. When
Yeah.
you've left for long enough to come back,
Yeah.
how many times have you and that particular individual had the same damn argument over and over again? That wasn't the last time y'all had
I
that.
don't know if this is a trick or this is manipulation, but if you stay gone long enough, they get worried about you. and then they're
Wow.
happy to see you when daddy's home.
Right, okay, but that's also
all you gotta have is a pizza,
but
some
that's
donuts in your
momentarily.
hand,
That's in
and
the
they're
that's in
happy.
the moment though, baby. Later on in that relationship,
Then
y'all
we can
have,
talk,
but y'all
because-
have revisited that
Yeah,
same
because we
issue
have to
because
resolve.
there's no resolve.
But there's no
guy doesn't seem like he's
rage
resolving
in that
nothing, bro.
moment,
Let me tell you
because
why.
time heals most wounds.
Time,
Why?
hear
'Cause
that.
feelings cause issues. Feelings cause issues.
Yes,
Feelings cause issues,
absolutely.
not emotions.
Okay.
Two different things.
Break that down.
So you know the culture term, you and your feelings.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
yeah.
But when I'm sitting in my emotions,
not
I'm
a-
feeling
Right.
so that I can deal
Absolutely.
and so that I can heal.
Yeah.
And so-
Emotions are more than just feelings.
Right. And so if I am emotionally intelligent, which is mental health,
Yes.
and you and I or we or whoever you're with are taking the initiatives to become better within their mental, because mental health is subjective. We talked about this. Mental health is not just a diagnosis in the DSM. Mental health is very subjective. Mental health is if something is causing you impairment, then that is a mental health issue. It doesn't have to be a diagnosis. It doesn't have to be depression. If it's causing an impairment and your mental health is skewed, you have a mental health issue at that moment.
Because we've been throwing that mental health word around very easily nowadays, but to that point to where you just defined it, you
Yeah.
know, because sometimes it feels like a label and it discredits people. And then sometimes it feels like an excuse. But to what you're saying is like if it causes an impairment. then
Right.
that's
Now I want to go back to this little argument. If you got two abandoned people
Yes.
in this situation,
Yeah.
and one flees, which is abandonment. Now I'm abandoned because you fleed me.
Right.
So you're causing more impairment.
But I'll be back.
But it doesn't matter. You're causing more impairment.
Right.
Who abandoned you when you were young?
Everyone.
Okay, are they back? Have they came back?
Yeah.
Oh, but you still reap the repercussions of their abandonment, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't make it okay. You're still having to deal with that shit now, even though they returned and they came back. It
Yeah.
doesn't make them coming back atone for what the impact or the impairment they caused or you engulfed in because of that experience. So when you leave,
But it made me stronger.
in what ways?
It made me be able to deal with
With what?
abandonment,
No,
with
you're
detachment.
still not dealing with abandonment.
No, because now I've learned to be like, okay.
And deal with what?
I'm
Because
not-
if you're fleeing, you're not dealing with your emotion.
No, because I understand it's a reason and season for multiple things. So if I'm gonna give you the time and the space that you need, and we'll handle it when we handle it. And it's not in my hands. I give it to the higher
But
power. I
every-
give it to the
right.
Lord, and He gonna figure it out.
Every relationship's a direct reflection of who we are. We see in others who we are, not who they are.
Yeah.
Okay, so like with you.
Wait,
only
wait,
because
take that back, take
I'm
that
in a
back. She
place-
said-
Okay.
And deal with what?
I'm
Because
not-
if you're fleeing, you're not dealing
Sorry.
with your emotion.
No, because I understand it's a reason and season for multiple things. So if I'm gonna give you the time and the space that you need, and we'll handle it when we handle it. And it's not in my hands. I give it to the higher
But
power. I
every-
give it to the
right.
Lord, and He gonna figure it out.
Every relationship's a direct reflection of who we are.
Absolutely.
We see in others who we are, not who they are.
Yeah.
Okay, so like with you, only because I'm in a place of
Projection, she's talking about.
not perfect at all, of meaning healing. I've done this healing work. It's been years. I maintain it. I do it every day.
Right.
It's literally a lifestyle. Otherwise, I can go back to my dysfunctional norms and nobody's safe there. Okay, not even me, not even here.
I hear
But
you.
so I say that to say, when I'm looking at you, right? We see in others who we are, not who they are. I see a man who is extremely broken, who has taken his brokenness and made the best of it, who has made many decisions that he feels that was great and contributed to a greatness of a big moving part of his life, but also contributed to some demise of a big part of his life, who is now trying to figure out, how do I take these moving parts and make them a collective whole? Because I'm feeling a lot of brokenness and division and a lot of stuff that's going on. However, I see a man who at the core is a great man, has great character, wants to be better, wants to have better character, wants to show up for people better, wants to be the best father he could be, trying to figure out how he can do that, still figuring out a sense of self, stands on his square, stands on business, sometimes too much to where standing on that business can mess some things up. So what I'm saying is all those things I said I see in you, are just the things that are really in me. Because I can't see past myself. Okay.
Right.
And so when you're in a relationship and you're in
Can
this
you
hostile
see
argument,
past yourself?
Of course you can. Yeah, I think like, I understand. I was going to say to you earlier on, when you said she's saying a lot of things, but it seemed as though they were kind of at loggerheads. She wasn't hearing him at a point. And I was going to say, when you've got a lot of talking points that you adhere to, sometimes you default your talking points and stand by those talking points and won't progress, because moving beyond those talking points ultimately work against your position.
Yeah.
But I believe you can see, we've kind of touched on bits, things like this in the past. I think you can see beyond yourself. When I look at someone else, I'm not always seeing me, because when I take a mentor, okay, I'm seeing from the perspective of who I am, and I am limited by my, I can be limited by my worldview, my experiences, again, my perceptions. However, when I look at a mentor, I may be seeing in them what is lacking in me, and I want, to grow into the things that I see in them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be what she's saying though?
That's what I potentially, possibly. I thought she was, my conclusion when she was saying that is that she's trying to say you can only see you in someone else, and I don't know that's what I'm saying.
Are you basically saying that she's not just saying you're seeing in someone else everything that you have, but you're also seeing in someone else everything that you're not?
Yeah.
So no matter what, you're always seeing yourself.
It's like, obviously you see, Zeke said it already, you see from your frame, from your angle.
Yeah,
a
it's like you
situation.
experience reality from your perspective,
Yeah,
rather
through
than
your
from
lenses.
actually.
So your lens on, you see, it's like when they talk about, is the glass half full or half empty?
Mm-hmm.
It comes down to the person's perspective, their mindset, their frame. How do they view that glass with half full glass of water?
What is empathy is the question that comes to me. I think a person who is, and they call it, they say empath and all that kind of stuff. I think some people lack empathy. They don't have the ability to see a situation from somebody else's perspective, because that person is locked within the frame of their life. They're fixed. I think a person who is empathetic has the ability to see in a way that doesn't only benefit them. And I guess, again, that's what I'm thinking she's saying. Only seeing from yourself, not being able to see beyond you is not really seeing beyond what is an advantage to you. I'm reading into what she's saying. She didn't say that. But I don't know. Maybe I'd need to let her play a bit more to get a true context of what she's saying. But I maybe to a degree, I don't like anything that sounds like it's restricting me. So, so I jumped to the defense.
To defend it,
you get me? And I'm just like, no. But
no, it's like, but I'm with you there, because when I heard her say that, it didn't I didn't accept that one. It didn't feel like, that's one to take in. It was like, nah, I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right. Guys, we'll be back with part 2 at some point in the future. Peace.